Right now, somewhere on this planet, a group of people are crying, not because someone died, not because of a disaster, because a ball hit a post instead of going into a net. Football, or soccer if you're American, is played in more countries than the United Nations has members. More humans watch the FIFA World Cup final than any other single event in human history. And yet, most people outside of Europe and South America have no idea how this sport quietly took over the entire world. So here's the question nobody actually asks. How? How did a game, 11 people kicking a ball on a patch of grass, become the closest thing humanity has to a shared religion? That's exactly what we're breaking down today. Let's go back, way back. It's 1863, London, England. A group of men in suits sit in a pub and spend hours arguing about the rules of a game, which is peak British behavior, honestly. Before this meeting, football was chaos. Different schools played by completely different rules. Some let you carry the ball, some let you kick people in the shins. There was almost no structure. That meeting produced the first official rule book. 13 rules. The Football Association was born, and the modern game began. But here's the part that most people miss. Britain at this time was the most powerful empire on earth. British merchants, sailors, soldiers, and engineers were traveling everywhere. South America, Africa, Asia, India, the Middle East. And wherever they went, they brought one thing with them besides colonial ambition: a ball. British workers introduced football to port cities, to railway workers in Argentina, to textile workers in Brazil, to dock workers in West Africa. These weren't government programs. These weren't organized campaigns. It was just people playing a game on their lunch break, and the locals watched, then joined, then fell in love. Football spread like a contagious idea, not a policy. And that's rare. That almost never happens. Now let's talk about why it spread so fast. Because here's something that surprises most people. Football is almost perfectly designed for the entire world, by accident. Think about what you need to play it. A ball, 2 goals, a flat surface. That's it. You don't need expensive equipment like in American football or ice hockey. You don't need a court, a net, or special shoes. Kids in Brazil play barefoot on the beach. Kids in Kenya play on dirt roads. Kids in Indonesia use a bundle of rags if they can't afford a ball. Compare that to, say, golf, or Formula One, or cricket, where you need specific gear and a special field. Football is the only global sport with basically zero barrier to entry, and the rules, stupidly simple at the core: get the ball into the other team's goal. Don't use your hands. Whoever scores more wins. That's it. A 5-year-old understands it. That's incredibly rare in sports.
But simplicity alone doesn't explain what happened next. In the mid-1900s, something changed that turbocharged football's reach: television. The 1966 FIFA World Cup in England was broadcast to 75 countries. That was considered extraordinary at the time. The 1970 World Cup in Mexico was the first to be broadcast in color, and the visuals were so dramatic, so vibrant that people who had never cared about football suddenly couldn't look away. And then you had the players, Pelé, that name. If you've never watched football in your life, you've probably still heard that name. He's widely considered the greatest player who ever lived, and he played for Brazil in 3 World Cups, winning all 3. He was charismatic, explosive, and completely unique, and television beamed him into homes worldwide. People in countries that barely had football leagues were watching him and thinking, I want to do that. Football went from a game British people exported to the thing Pelé does, almost overnight. Now here's where it gets genuinely wild. By the 1970s and 80s, football was so deeply embedded in so many cultures that it started doing something no other sport had ever done. It became an identity, not just entertainment, not just a hobby. Football became the way entire nations define themselves. Think about that for a second. When Brazil plays Argentina at the World Cup, it's not really about football. It's about two nations with a complicated history, fierce national pride, and deeply different ideas about who they are, settling something almost tribal. People cry, people fight. Governments have used football victories as political propaganda. In 1969, El Salvador and Honduras literally went to war. After a disputed World Cup qualifying match, history books call it the Football War, 3 days of actual armed conflict over a football game. That is not the behavior of people who are casually interested in a sport. That is the behavior of people for whom the sport means something beyond sport. So let's talk about the World Cup specifically because this is important. The FIFA World Cup happens every 4 years. National teams, not club teams, compete, and 211 countries try to qualify. That's more countries than compete in the Olympics. The final is watched by somewhere between 700 million and 1.5 billion people live. The total viewership across the tournament is over 5 billion, out of roughly 8 billion humans on Earth. There is no close second place. The Super Bowl, which Americans think of as the biggest sports event in the world, draws around 100 million viewers. The World Cup final draws roughly 10 to 15 times that. Here's a comparison that might land better.
Did you know that
The last season of Game of Thrones, one of the most watched TV events in modern history, peaked at 19 million viewers per episode. The World Cup final gets 40 times more eyes than the most popular TV show in the world. Football isn't just popular, it's operating in a completely different category from everything else, and it keeps growing. For most of football's history, North America was the one major holdout. The U.S. had its own sports, American football, baseball, basketball. Football felt foreign, too slow, people said, too low-scoring. But then came 1994, the U.S. hosted the World Cup, and the country was shocked by what it saw. Stadiums packed, passionate fans from all over the world descending on American cities. The final between Brazil and Italy was played in front of 94,000 people at the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles. It planted a seed. MLS, Major League Soccer, launched the following year, and it's been growing steadily ever since. Now in 2026, the World Cup comes back to North America, hosted by the US, Canada, and Mexico, and this time Americans are actually ready. The sport has 30 years of infrastructure, youth development, and cultural shift behind it. It's not a question of if football captures America, it's already happening. But zoom out for a moment. Why does any of this matter? Why should you care about a sport? Because football is one of the only things, maybe the only thing, that puts 2 billion strangers in the same emotional state at the same time. When the final whistle blows at a World Cup final, the winning country erupts. Strangers hug, people cry, cities come to life at 2 a.m., and the losing side sits in silence in a kind of shared grief that anyone watching can actually feel. No other sport does this at this scale. No movie, no song, no TV show touches as many people simultaneously. Football is, in the truest sense of the word, a shared human experience, one of the last ones we have. So here's the summary. Football became a global religion because it started simple, spread through human connection rather than corporate strategy, could be played anywhere by anyone with nothing, was amplified by television and gave nations a stage to express ideas.
All right, time for some action. Get more football stories by hitting subscribe right here. And while you're at it, check out the next video.